Every year, it was the same. A new face, a new body, and the same old dread. The ritual was etched into my very existence. Celebrate with friends, blow out the candles, eat the cake, and then, as the clock hand swept past 3:27 a.m., brace myself for the inevitable. My bones, with a grotesque symphony of cracks and pops, would rearrange themselves. My skin would stretch and tear, my features twisting into an entirely new configuration. It was a violent, 10-minute-long metamorphosis, a private horror show I'd endured for 27 years. The sight was stomach-turning, the smell of blood and marrow a sickening perfume. But the sound was what haunted me most. The relentless crunch and pop of bone, the wet splat of blood, a melody of body horror that made me flinch at the most mundane noises for days afterward. A simple soda can opening or a rubber band snapping could send a shiver of terror down my spine. It was a humiliating, isolating secret that soured every birthday. My mother, ever the optimist, tried to normalize it. "It runs in the family," she'd say, citing a cousin in Fresno with a similar, albeit more frequent, affliction. When I was younger, she'd call me a butterfly emerging from its cocoon. But after I turned 13 and the transformations got more intense, she dropped the poetic metaphors. No one knew the cause for sure. A genetic disorder, a curse, even a werewolf bite had been suggested. But the reason didn't matter. The result was the same, a new me in the mirror every year. This year, my 27th, I didn't even try to sleep. I lay in bed, scrolling on my phone, counting down the minutes. I'd learned to prepare. A plastic cover protected my sheets from the mess. I'd come to appreciate the one small mercy. The transformation, while gruesome, was mercifully painless. At 3:27 a.m., a subtle twinge in my bones announced the change. My ribs folded inward. My fingers bent backward at impossible angles. My teeth shifted and my vision blurred as my eyes migrated to a new position. The sounds were as awful as ever, but I focused on my breathing, riding the wave of transformation like a surfer on a monstrous tide. This time, it seemed to be over quicker. I wiggled my toes, a small, private test. Everything felt right. I even felt a little taller. I padded barefoot to the bathroom to inspect my new form. My last face had been soft, approachable, with a friendly roundness to the cheeks. This one was different. My cheekbones were higher, my chin sharper, and when I smiled, my right incisor was noticeably crooked. It was the kind of flaw that would have sent a normal person to the orthodontist, but for me, what was the point? A year from now, the whole smile would be gone. I tried on different expressions, cycling through a full range of human emotions: anger, joy, despair. This face looked meaner, more severe. I tugged at the skin under my eyes, studying the new contours. I'd need to adjust my makeup routine all over again. My phone buzzed, and my mother's smiling face lit up the screen. She always stayed up, eager to see the new me as soon as the coast was clear. "Hey, sweetie. Oh, I like this one. You look very svelte," she chirped, her voice bouncing off the tiled walls. "Hey, Mom," I said, a little exhausted. "Did everything go all right?" she asked, a motherly concern in her voice. "No hiccups this time?" "No, Mom, no hiccups," I assured her. After a few early life incidents where a limb had gotten twisted the wrong way, she always checked. It was a little bit of comfort in a deeply bizarre reality. "Well, that's great," she said. "I'm very proud of you." I loved her for her unwavering support, even though she couldn't possibly understand. She'd had the same face her entire life. She squinted at the screen, her brow furrowed. "You look a little familiar," she said, biting her lip in thought. "Have you had this face before?" I blinked, surprised. I had never, ever repeated a face. If I could, I would have picked a favorite and stuck with it years ago. No, I'm pretty sure it's new, I said, a little defensively. She kept staring. I could have sworn I've seen you somewhere before. I'm your daughter, Mom, I sighed, the question starting to grate on my nerves. Look, I'm really tired. I've got work tomorrow. Can I call you back? Of course, sweetie, she chirped. I'm just happy to see your face. The irony of that statement wasn't lost on me. I love you. Get some rest, and happy birthday. Love you too, Mom. She waved at the phone and hung up. I was alone again, my reflection staring back at me under the harsh fluorescent lights. The face of a stranger. Tired, slightly judgmental, and a little sour. I sighed, turned off the lights, and went back to my room. I peeled off the plastic sheet, crawled back into bed, and fell asleep almost instantly. My alarm shrieked at 6:45 a.m., yanking me from my slumber. I cursed myself for not calling out of work. I unlocked my phone with a passcode, a necessity when your face changes every year, and turned off the alarm. New year, new me, and same piece of shit job. My clothes, of course, were all wrong, selected for a body that no longer existed. My pants were suddenly too short, and my shirt hung awkwardly on my chest. I made myself a huge breakfast. The transformation always left me ravenous for days. The walk to my car was quicker than usual, thanks to my new longer legs. I passed my neighbors, who were used to a completely different woman leaving my apartment each morning. One girl let out a sharp gasp, her face draining of color, but her friends quickly shushed her and pulled her away. Her reaction was a little more extreme than I was used to, but I didn't think much of it. My old, beat-up car felt strange. My knees hit the steering wheel, and I had to adjust the seat and mirrors. My new face looked more suited for something sleek and fast, not an old beater. As I adjusted the mirrors, I caught a glimpse of my eyes. The color was different, but the heavy purple shadows underneath were a constant no matter what face I wore. The drive to work was its usual special flavor of hell. Gridlock, terrible pop music, and the morning news on the radio. Some prick in a green Volvo wouldn't let me merge, and I laid on the horn with gusto. "Asshole!" I shouted, a new voice still unfamiliar to me. The Volvo sped off, leaving a cloud of foul exhaust. Killed in a drunk driving accident at 3:15. The news anchor's voice cut through the music. I changed the station, annoyed. From depressing news to bad 70s rock. I cut into the left lane, passing the Volvo with a grim sense of satisfaction. Work was even more chaotic than usual. An intern was apologizing profusely into his headset, sweat beading on his brow. The TV was blaring the news, and even my manager, Lucy, who hated background noise, had it up high. There was a palpable tension in the air. Holly, the lead receptionist, sat at the center of the storm, calmly scrolling on her phone and chewing on a stick of blue raspberry gum. "Morning," I said, heading to my only safe haven. "You know what's going on? It seems kind of tense." "Morning," she said, blowing a bubble. "Not a clue." "Did you send somebody for coffee yet?" I asked, hoping I could avoid the errand. "You know that's your job. Caramel coffee with extra whip, please." "I think they said they were out of caramel yesterday." "What?" she groaned, and finally looked up at me. Her jaw dropped. "Whoa, you look different." "My birthday was yesterday, Holly. We've been over this. I've worked here for 5 years. She'd seen me change faces 4 times already." "You look familiar," she said, chewing thoughtfully. "I swear I've seen you somewhere before." "Really?" "Yeah, I swear. I've got it." She snapped her fingers. "You look just like my cousin Hannah." "Is that a good thing?" She blew another bubble. "I mean, it could be worse. Anyway, Lucy wants to see you before you get coffee. Sorry, forgot to mention it." A sharp, icy spike of a headache drove into my skull. Lucy rarely bothered with me directly. This couldn't be good. As I walked to her office, the door swung open and Kirsten ran out, her face streaked with tears. My stomach clenched. Was this it? Was I about to be laid off? "Come in." Lucy's voice was suspiciously cheerful. I walked into the lion's den, fully prepared to lose my job. Lucy's office was spotless, exuding a zen-like calm with a fountain bubbling in the corner. She was looking out the window, her chin in her hand. I braced for the worst. But when she turned around and saw me, her eyes widened and she burst into tears. "Thank God you're all right." She rushed over and wrapped me in a bone-crushing hug.
Yeah, everything's fine," I said, awkwardly patting her back. Lucy knew about my situation, but she'd never seemed to care much. I wasn't sure when we'd gotten so close. "I was so worried," she sobbed. "What are you talking about?" I gently peeled her off of me. "This happens every year, Lucy. It was my birthday yesterday." Her brow furrowed. "Your birthday?" The tears dried instantly. She let go and took 3 steps back, her eyes wide with fear. My heart started to pound. This reaction was new. I was suddenly convinced I'd missed something awful on my face. "Of course it's me, Lucy," I prodded. "We've gone over this." Instead of answering, she moved to her desk and furiously typed on her keyboard with shaking hands. She beckoned me to her monitor, her face grim. She'd pulled up a news article, dated this morning, with a picture of a grisly car accident at the top. The headline read, "Young starlet killed in drunk driving accident." My mouth dried. The article went on to say that supermodel Megan Rogers had died in a head-on collision with a drunk driver at 3:15 a.m. I knew that name. Megan Rogers was one of our clients, a huge new signing for the firm. I'd never met her, but I knew Lucy had been thrilled about her. "Explain this," Lucy said. "I'm not sure what you're talking about," I said, treading carefully. "You will be in a second," she said. She scrolled down, and that's when I saw the picture. It was a headshot of Megan Rogers, a professional PR photo. Same strong nose, same brown eyes, the same slight twist to the upper lip, the same crooked incisor, the slope of her shoulders, the curve of her nostrils, the slant of her brow. Every detail was the same. A face that was new to me, yet intimately familiar. It was the face of a dead woman. It was my face. "Now, I know about your little situation," Lucy said, her voice shaking, "but you can see why this might leave me with a few questions." My mind reeled. All my life, I'd thought my new faces were a fresh start, a clean slate. I'd never considered that they had a history, that they might belong to someone else. This changed everything. One horrifying question screamed in my mind, drowning out all other thoughts. Had I been wearing the faces of the dead? A chill ran down my spine, colder than any dread I've felt before. My entire life, every transformation, every new beginning had been built on a lie. I had always assumed I was a unique case, a human caterpillar undergoing an annual metamorphosis. But now, staring at the face of a dead woman on a computer screen, a different, more terrible truth presented itself. This wasn't a rebirth. It was a re-inhabitation, a recycling of lives, a macabre cosmic transaction. I stumbled back from the monitor, my legs suddenly weak. "This can't be," I whispered, my new voice sounding foreign and small in the silent office. Lucy, no longer the weeping mess, was watching me with a calculated, terrified expression. "Jan, the time of the accident, 3:15. Your transformation begins at 3:27. My mind raced. 12-minute gap. 12 minutes between the death of one person and the birth of my new face. The timing was too precise to be a coincidence. I wasn't being reborn. I was being filled. A replacement for a life that had just ended. The universe, or whatever cosmic force was at play, was simply reusing a vessel, a new face for a new death. "How long have you known?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Lucy looked away, her eyes flicking to the news story. I've been working with celebrity clients for 20 years, Jan. I've seen some strange things. A few years ago, a client of mine, he died in a booting accident, and the next morning, your face, it was his. I didn't say anything. I thought it was a coincidence. Then a few months ago, I was researching a new client and I saw a picture of you, or what I thought was you a few years ago, but her name was different, and she had died in a car crash at the same time. My blood ran cold. Lucy had been watching me. Connecting the dots, I had been blind, or perhaps too afraid to see. She was a witness to my secret, but her role was even more sinister. She was a curator of the dead. So you just let me be? I asked, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. You just watched me get a new face every year and thought, oh, that's just Jan being Jan. It's not that simple, she said, wringing her hands. At first, I didn't know what to do. Then I realized, you are a resource, an invaluable resource. My heart pounded. The horror of my situation was only just beginning to unfold. My life, my very identity was not my own. It was a carousel of the recently deceased, and I was the unwitting passenger. What do you mean, a resource? I asked, my voice hardening. Celebrity clients, Jan. Do you have any idea how much money is lost when a celebrity dies? All that brand recognition, all those endorsements, all that money just poof, gone. But you, Jan, you are a solution. We can preserve the brand. We can continue their legacy. We can make a fortune. Her words hit me like a physical blow. She saw my existence not as a tragedy, but as a business opportunity. I was a vessel, a blank slate for the dead, a living puppet. The thought was sickening. No, I said, a deep, primal anger bubbling up inside me. You don't have a choice, Lucy said, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. I've seen the others, the transformations. They get more violent the more you resist. I've been watching the news, Jan. I know who's next. I stared at her, my mind reeling. My problem wasn't a cosmic accident. It was a cursed cycle, an endless loop of death and rebirth that I was trapped in. And Lucy wasn't a kind, understanding boss. She was the ringmaster, the person who saw my pain and chose to exploit it. My face, Megan Rogers' face, stared back at me in the mirror behind Lucy's desk. The same crooked shift incisor, the same high cheekbones. It was the face of a beautiful woman, a star. But now all I saw was a ghost, a stolen life. The horror of it all was overwhelming. I ran. Out of her office, through the crowded workspace, past the gawking interns and Holly with her blue gum. I ran to my car, my mind a blank slate of panic and rage. I started the engine and sped out of the parking lot, the asphalt blurring in my vision. I had to get away. I had to end this. My hands trembled on the steering wheel, the leather cold against my cheek. The radio was on, blaring the news.
Search for the drunk driver responsible for the death of supermodel Megan Rogers continues, a voice said. My heart was a drum in my chest, a desperate, frantic beat. The face of the dead woman in my rear-view mirror felt like a curse. I drove with no destination, just an insane desire to escape the truth. I had to stop the cycle. I had to break free. I pulled over on a deserted stretch of highway, my breath coming in ragged sobs. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from Lucy. You can't outrun it, Jan. It's inside you. It's who you are. Her words were a final, chilling confirmation. The curse wasn't external. It was a part of me. There was no escape. I put my head on the steering wheel, the leather cold against my cheek. I was an echo, a memory, a walking graveyard. I was a beautiful, successful woman with a perfect life, but only because she had to die for me to live. And I knew, with the certainty that chilled me to the bone, that the end of my curse would only come with the end of my life. And then, as a new thought took hold, a glimmer of an awful, terrifying hope, I began to smile, a wicked, crooked smile that was both hers and mine. I couldn't stop the deaths, I couldn't stop the transformations, but maybe, just maybe, I could control who I became. I picked up my phone and opened the contacts. I typed out a new message, my fingers shaking, not with fear, but with a terrible, new kind of resolve. I was going to be a ghost, but I was going to be the ghost of a person who mattered, a person with power. I had been reborn into a new face, a new life, and it was a life I was going to use. I was no longer a victim. I was a vessel, and I was going to choose the next person I became. I was going to choose someone who could help me, someone with secrets, someone with power. And I knew exactly who to target. I was no longer just the person who wore the faces of the dead. I was their next incarnation. I was their memory. I was their legacy. And the next person to die would be the person I chose. The car shuddered, and the engine gave a final sputtering gasp. I looked at the gas gauge, empty. A slow smile spread across my face. I was stranded, on a deserted road with no one around, no one but me. I was safe, for now. But who knew who would pass by? The next person could be a doctor, a politician, or a serial killer. The choice was up to fate. The unexpected ending was not that the curse was broken, but that I learned to use it. And as the sun rose, I looked at the face of Megan Rogers in the rearview mirror, and I made a vow. You were a star, Megan, and now you're mine. I was a walking graveyard. I was a beautiful, successful woman, but only because she had to die for me to live. I was an echo, a memory. I was the personification of a curse, and I was going to use it to get what I wanted. The world was full of people who had lives worth living, and all I had to do was wait for them to die.